the rejected royal. The twin moons of Zelquora hung heavy in the purple sky, casting soft light over the icy palace walls. Inside the palace, the air was cold, not just from the weather, but from the silence. Everyone avoided the West Wing. That was where the broken princess lived. Princess Zira sat near her glass window, her thin arms resting on a metal table. Her legs, twisted and stiff, were wrapped in thermal cloth. She could not walk. She had never run like the other children. Born with a disease rare even among her alien kind, Zira was marked as cursed. Her skin glowed faintly with bluish scars, and her silver eyes seemed too big for her face. She was royalty, yes, but no one wanted her. The great king, her father, had sent messages across the stars. He promised land, gold, and power to anyone who would bond with his daughter. But again and again the suitors came, saw her, and left without a word. Some laughed quietly. Some looked away in pity. One even said, "I'd rather bond with a stone." Zira heard it all. She pretended not to care, but each rejection cut her like a knife. "Why do you even bother, father?" she asked once. "No one wants a broken mate." The king stood tall beside her. His voice was stern, but his eyes were soft. "Because you are my daughter, and someone out there will see what I see. Strength." That was 2 cycles ago. Now, Zira barely left her room. She spent her time reading human books. They fascinated her, so full of chaos, pain, and strange hope. That night, the palace lights suddenly flashed red. An intruder? The guards ran toward the outer walls. From her high window, Zira saw a strange ship spiraling down, smoke trailing behind it. It crashed not far from the edge of the palace, sending sparks into the sky. Her heart raced. She hadn't felt excitement in years. "Who is it?" she whispered. Soon word came from the guards. It was a human, alone, a male, injured. Zira's heart skipped. A human? Here? Down in the main hall, King Theron looked at the burned and tired figure before him. The human was young, with wild black hair, torn clothes, and cuts across his face. But his eyes were calm. He didn't beg. He didn't speak of politics. He only said one thing. "Water. Please." The nobles watching laughed. "You crash into royal lands and ask for water?" But King Theron raised a hand. "Feed him. Heal him." "I wish to speak to him later." Zira, still watching from a secret corner behind a curtain, couldn't stop staring at the human. He didn't look scared like the others. He looked curious. Later that evening, Zira requested a private, channeled to the healing wing. She watched through the cameras as the human sat silently on the bed. He didn't cry. He didn't panic. He was fixing a broken wrist device using just a sharp rock and wire from his suit. She smiled without meaning to. "What's his name?" she asked a servant. "Jace," the servant replied. "He says he's a mechanic, nothing more." "A mechanic?" Zira leaned back. "Someone who fixes broken things. How strange." That made her want to meet him. The next morning, Jace was brought to the throne room. The king stood tall in his black royal armor, while Zira sat quietly beside him, covered in royal cloth, her legs hidden. Her face remained calm, cold. Jace bowed, not too low but respectfully. "Thanks for not killing me," King Theron chuckled. "You landed on royal land, human. That's dangerous, but perhaps lucky." "I don't believe in luck," Jace said simply. Zira's eyes narrowed. He was bold. Theron continued, "Many have come to this palace seeking riches and fame, but no one has truly seen my daughter, not with clear eyes. Would you look at her now and not flinch?" Jace turned his eyes toward Zira. He didn't flinch. He didn't laugh, he didn't look away, he just nodded like it was nothing strange. "You're the princess?" he asked. Zira nodded once. "You've got good posture," he said. Zira blinked. That was the first compliment anyone had given her in years. And it wasn't about her face or her bloodline. It was about her. I'm Jace, he added. You seem smart. King Theron raised a brow. You are not afraid? Of what? Jace asked. A girl sitting on a chair? Zira let out a small breath, almost like a laugh. For the first time in her life, someone had seen her. Not as a burden, not as a prize, but just as a person. And deep inside, a strange feeling began to grow. The princess dreamed of walking, not floating in her chair, not being carried by guards, but walking, on her own feet, across green fields she had only seen in pictures. Her mind wandered through that dream until the sharp ache in her legs woke her. She was back in reality. The cold palace air touched her face as the sun crept in through the crystal windows. But today was different. Today she had asked for something she never dared ask before. She had asked to meet the human, alone. In the quiet of the royal healing wing, Zira sat in her chair, her royal robes replaced by a simple black dress. Her golden crown was gone. She didn't want him to see a princess. She wanted him to see her. Jace walked in slowly, his arm still wrapped in healing gel. His boots echoed lightly on the metal floor. He paused when he saw her. You're not wearing the crown today, he said. I thought you might prefer the real me, Zira replied. Jace gave a soft smirk. I do. Zira pointed to the bench, near her. Sit. He obeyed without question. She looked at his hands, rough with black lines of grease still under the nails. Are you truly a mechanic? I fix broken things, he said simply. Ships, machines, engines. Sometimes, people. Zira tilted her head. People? He looked into her eyes. Yeah, I had a sister, she couldn't speak. People thought she was useless, but she was smarter than all of us. Zira's chest tightened. Jace added, she died last year. I couldn't fix her. There was silence. Zira didn't know what to say. She only reached for the edge of her chair and unlocked the metal braces around her legs. The sound echoed. Click, click, click. Then, she pulled up her dress slightly to show the truth. Her legs were thin, twisted, wrapped in metal and wires. Scars ran across her knees. One foot didn't even face the right direction. This is me, she said. Still think I have good posture? Jace didn't look away. Instead, he leaned forward. You're strong. I've seen machines collapse under less pain. Zira was stunned. No one had ever called her strong before. Later that day, she brought him to her private chamber where broken machines filled the floor. Hover devices, toy drones, shattered limb supports, things she had collected over the years, things no royal ever fixed. Jace looked around like he had entered a treasure room. Mind? If I try something? He asked. Go ahead, she said. He got to work, picking up a floating limb support, flipping it over, and using parts from 3 different machines to rebuild the core. Zira watched, amazed, as the small device powered on and hovered in midair. Something she hadn't seen work in years. How did you do that? She asked. I listened to what it wants to do, Jace said, smiling. Machines don't lie. They just need someone to understand them. By nightfall, Jace had repaired one of Zira's old walking suits, an early prototype her engineers had given up on. It was bulky, scratched and dusty, but Jace had added a new stabilizer and reinforced the knee joints with a flexible compound. Try this, he said, holding it out. Zira hesitated. It hasn't worked in years. Maybe it was waiting for the right mechanic. She slowly fit her legs into the braces. Jace helped her up, holding her arms as the device beeped softly. 1 step, 2 steps. She wobbled, but didn't fall. 3 steps. Her heart raced. 4 steps. 5. She was walking. She turned, eyes wide, mouth open in disbelief. I'm walking, Jace grinned. Told you I fix broken things. But before she could thank him, a sudden hiss came from the wall. A red light blinked. Alert. Unsafe power surge detected. Zira's legs began to shake. The brace sparked. No, Jace shouted. There was a sharp explosion and Zyra fell hard to the floor. Guards rushed in. Smoke filled the air. Jace tried to reach her, but a soldier slammed him back. "She's hurt," Jace shouted. "Let me help." "You did this," one guard yelled. "No, Jace was cut off as he was dragged out of the room. Zyra's vision blurred. She saw the human being taken away, screaming her name, and then darkness. The throne room was silent, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Princess Zyra lay in the healing chamber, her breathing shallow, her leg braces blackened with scorch marks. The explosion hadn't killed her, but it had nearly shattered her progress. And her heart. In the underground cells, Jace sat on the floor, his hands chained to the wall, blood drying on his forehead. He stared at the ceiling, whispering only 2 words over and over. "Not me." He had fixed that brace with care. He had tested it 5 times. There had been no power surge when he sealed it. So why did it explode? Hours earlier, the palace had erupted in chaos. The guards didn't wait for an investigation. The moment the device failed, they had stormed the room. Some were eager, any excuse to punish the human outsider. King Theron had watched from the upper balcony. His face remained still, unreadable. But when the explosion echoed through the hall, a shadow passed through his eyes. Now, in the quiet of her chamber, Zyra slowly woke up. Her body ached and her lips were dry. The healer beside her leaned in gently. "You're safe, Princess." "My legs?" she asked, still damaged, but not beyond repair. She looked down. The brace was destroyed. Her progress was gone, and Jace was nowhere to be seen. Where is he?" she whispered. The healer's face tightened. "He is in the dungeons, charged with attempted harm to the royal bloodline." Zyra's eyes burned, not from pain, but from something hotter. Rage. In the throne hall, the king met with his advisors. Nobles muttered in corners. It was the human. He's dangerous. He wanted her to fall again, to keep her weak. Maybe he was never a mechanic, just a thief looking for royal favor. King Theron raised a hand. "Enough." He stood, his voice calm but powerful. "The human saved her once. He fixed the suit no one else could. And when it failed, he tried to protect her. But it still failed," one noble argued. "Or someone made it fail," the king replied. That made the room go silent. Back in Zhao, the prison cell. Jace looked up as someone approached. Not a guard. It was a servant girl, a quiet one who always carried Zyra's books. She slipped him a small object through the bars. "What's this?" he asked. "A data crystal. From the princess's chamber. It recorded everything." Jace frowned and plugged the crystal into the small repair tool still hidden in his boot. The hologram blinked on. He saw himself working on the suit. Then, hours later, a shadow entered the room. Tall, thin, with golden armor, a royal noble. He pulled out a device and overloaded the suit's power core. Jace's jaw tightened. So it was sabotage. The girl nodded. "They wanted you blamed. They wanted her alone again." Jace stood, gripping the bars. "I need to see the king." But he didn't need to wait. The king came to him. That night, the royal guards brought Jace, still bruised, into the king's private chambers. King Theron dismissed everyone else. "Show me what you found," he said. Jace handed over the crystal. As the hologram played, the king's fist clenched. "Nobel Daros," he whispered. "My own bloodline." He looked at Jace, not with anger, but something closer to sorrow. "I believed Zyra would be a burden to any mate. I thought she needed someone strong to carry her." He paused. But maybe she needed someone who saw her as already strong. He walked to the door and called out, "Bring my daughter here. Now." Zyra arrived, still weak, wrapped in soft robes, her body trembling. When she saw Jace, her eyes filled with pain. and relief. "I didn't know if you were still alive," she whispered. "I was about to say the same," he replied, smiling softly. The king stepped forward. "Daughter, you were nearly killed today, but not by a human." He showed her the recording. Zyra's eyes went cold. Daros, her cousin, the one who once told her no one would ever love her, the one who always smiled too kindly when she was in pain. The king knelt before her. "What do you want done, daughter?" Zyra didn't hesitate. "Let the human go," she said, "and bring Daros to the arena." The stage was set. The arena hadn't seen blood in years, but now fire torches were lit, and the nobles gathered in silence. The broken princess had returned, not in chains, not in shame, but standing with help from a rebuilt brace. And beside her stood the human mechanic, unchained, unafraid. What came next would shake the royal bloodline. The royal arena was no longer a place of sport. It had become a place of judgment, and blood was expected. Fire torches lit the high walls as thousands of alien nobles filled the seats, their eyes glowing with curiosity and hunger. Whispers passed from mouth to mouth. "Did you hear? The humans fighting. For what? The disabled princess? She made him her champion. She trusts him over her own family." At the center of the sand-covered arena stood Jace, bare-chested, holding a short blade made of alien steel. His injuries from before still ached, but his mind was clear. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for her. Above, in the royal platform, Zyra sat in her hover chair, wrapped in white. Her broken walking brace rested beside her, still, half-functional. She looked down with sharp, steady eyes. Next to her stood King Theron. His voice echoed over the arena. "Noble Daros has been charged with treason, sabotage, and attempted murder of the royal heir. He demands trial by combat." The crowd roared. Daros entered the arena slowly. His armor shimmered gold. His eyes were sharp and cruel. In his hands, he held a double-edged blade that hissed with plasma. He looked at Jace and smirked. "A human? This is your champion?" Jace said nothing. Zyra whispered under her breath, "Break him." The bell rang. Daros attacked first. Fast, heavy strikes meant to overwhelm. Jace ducked, rolled, and struck back. His blade sliced Daros's side, but just barely. The crowd gasped. This human wasn't weak. Daros sneered. "You don't belong here, off-worlder. She's a freak and you're a mistake." Jace's eyes turned cold. "She's worth 10 of you." The fight dragged on. Jace took a blow to the ribs. Blood dripped from his lip. But he didn't fall. Daros got angrier. His swings grew wild. Zyra leaned forward, gripping the edge of her seat. "Don't fight angry, Jace," she whispered. "Fight smart." And he did. He let Daros tire himself out, dodging just enough. Then in one final move he locked blades with the noble, twisted to the side and drove his elbow into Daros's neck. The noble stumbled. Jace swept his leg. Daros fell. Hard. Jace stood over him, blade at his throat. The crowd went silent. The king stood. "Finish it." Zyra stood too, her voice loud and clear. "No. Let him live. Let them all see him crawl." Jace lowered his blade. Daros, humiliated, bled on the ground. Back inside the palace, Zyra and Jace sat alone in the garden. The sky above was full of stars, quiet and soft. "You could have killed him," Zyra said. "I didn't want to kill," Jace replied. "I wanted them to see he's not stronger than truth." Zyra looked down. "They'll still whisper. Still, mock. About me, about us." Jace looked her in the eyes. "Let them. You're the only voice that matters to me." Zyra smiled, and for the first time in her life it reached her eyes. But far across the stars the news had spread. A human has won royal trial combat on Zelquora. Princess Zyra protected him. A mating bond may be forming. Powerful. Alien houses began to take notice. Some were furious, others were afraid, and one was ready to intervene. The royal moon garden was glowing under starlight. The silver leaves of the alien trees shimmered in the wind, and soft lights danced above the flowers, like fireflies made of glass. Zira sat on a stone bench near the fountain. She wore no crown, tonight. No armor, just a simple dark robe with her damaged brace quietly resting beside her. The cold air touched her face, but she didn't care. Tonight her heart was heavier than ever. She had watched a human bleed for her, fight for her, defend her name with everything he had. But still she couldn't understand why. Footsteps approached. Jace walked into the garden carrying 2 mugs of steam fruit tea. He had a fresh cut above his brow, and his hands were still, bruised from the arena, but he smiled as he sat beside her. "I figured you'd be awake," he said. Zira nodded. "The pain helps me think." Jace handed her the mug. "Then let's think together." They drank in silence for a moment, watching the stars above. Then Zira asked the question that had burned in her chest for days. "Why are you really here, Jace?" He looked at her. "You mean on this planet?" "I mean, in my life. Why are you here? You could have run after the crash. You could have escaped after the fight. You could have walked away when you saw my legs." Jace was quiet. Then he said something that froze her. "Because I was lost. Until you." Zira turned to him slowly. "What?" Jace stared into his cup. "Back home I had no purpose. My family was gone. My work meant nothing. I was just fixing things no one cared about, so I left. Took my ship, went too far." He laughed bitterly. "I didn't expect to survive the crash." Zira's eyes widened. "You were trying to die?" "I was trying to disappear," Jace admitted. "But then I saw you." She felt her throat tighten. "I saw a princess who everyone ignored. Oh, girl who still held her head high even when the world called her broken. And something inside me said, 'Don't disappear. Help her.'" Zira looked away. Her hands were shaking. "You're not broken, Zira," he whispered. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "No one ever says that," she said, voice cracking. "I just did," Jace replied softly. The silence returned, but now it was warm. Zira took a deep breath. "I want to show you something." She stood slowly, using a cane for balance, and led him deeper into the garden. Behind a wall of silver vines was a hidden pool, glowing softly with blue light. She stepped out of her brace, carefully, and moved into the water. Floating in the gentle pool, her twisted legs didn't matter. Here she could move freely. "Out here I feel free," she said. "No pain, no pity, just the stars and the water." Jace watched her, stunned. "You look like a queen," he whispered. She smiled sadly. "You're the only one who ever made me feel like one." Then, her voice dropped. "Would you really mate with someone like me?" Jace blinked. "Is that a real question?" She nodded slowly. He walked to the edge of the pool, dropped to one knee, and held her hand. "I would choose you over every queen in the galaxy." Zira's eyes filled with tears. He squeezed her fingers. "I don't see your scars. I see your courage. I don't care if you limp or float or fly. I care that you stayed strong when everyone gave up on you." Zira leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "Then say it," she whispered. "Say the words." And he did. "Will you mate with me, Princess Zira?" But as they held each other in the glowing garden, across the stars, something dark moved. A warship entered Zelkora's orbit, marked with the red banner of House Krell Noth, sworn enemies of Zira's bloodline. Inside, a commander gave the order. "Bring me the human. Kill the crippled royal if she resists." The love they just discovered was about to be tested by fire. Thunder rumbled over the palace of Zelkora, not from the sky but from orbit. An enemy warship had entered their space. The crimson banners of House Krellnoth flew proudly on, its hull. Their message was clear: war or surrender. Inside the royal chamber, King Theron stood stiff, his face like stone. "They've come for the human," he said. Zira sat beside him, her hands clenched tight. "They'll try to take him. And they'll kill me to send a message. Jace stood nearby, silent, ready. Theron turned to him slowly. You've stirred more than hearts in this palace, Jace. You've awakened ancient enemies. I didn't mean to, Jace replied. But I won't run. The king stepped forward. Then prove your worth, not just in blood, but in bond. Zira's breath caught. She knew what was coming. The final test, the king declared. The trial of mating vows. The trial of mating vows was older than the stars themselves, a test of loyalty, strength, and soul. No royal bond could be formed without it. Few survived, and none had ever been offered to a human. That night, the sacred chambers beneath the palace were opened for the first time in 200 years. Jace stood shirtless in the center, surrounded by glowing rings carved into the floor. Zira watched from above, her heart pounding like a war drum. A priestess stepped forward. The trial begins. If he fails, the bond is denied. If he dies, the vow ends with him. The room darkened, and Jace was alone. The trial was not made of walls or weapons. It was made of memory. In the silence, Jace's breath fogged the air. Then the first illusion appeared. His sister, standing in the wreckage of their home, her voice echoing, "You left me." He stepped forward, reaching out, but she turned into fire. Next came his father's voice, "You're weak, boy. Always were." Then the voices of the nobles. Just a human, not even worth her pity. Jace dropped to his knees. The pain was not physical. It was deeper. It was every word he had buried, every failure he had tried to forget. But then, a whisper. Not from the illusion, from the real world. "I believe in you." Zira's voice, soft and real, reached through the storm of his mind. He lifted his head. "Fix it," he whispered to himself. "Fix what's broken." He stood again. The illusion screamed. He walked through them. Outside the chamber, the priestess gasped. The human. He passed through the second ring. No human had ever crossed the first. Zira's eyes filled with tears. King Theron gripped the railing. "He's stronger than I thought." Inside the chamber, the final trial began. The floor lit up, forming a symbol of unity. Two broken halves searching for one whole. And Zira appeared, not a ghost, not a memory. The real her, stepping into the circle on shaking legs. Jace smiled weakly. "I thought this was my test." "It's ours now," she said. The final ring pulsed. Both had to say the vow aloud. If either failed, the test would reject them. Zira reached for his hand, and in perfect unison, they spoke. "I see your scars and I choose them. I see your soul and I keep it. I give you my bond, not as property, but as partner. Forever." The ring exploded in light. The chamber doors opened. Smoke poured out and the crowd gasped. Zira and Jace stood hand in hand, their bodies glowing faintly from the trial's energy. The bond had accepted them, for the first time in history. A human had passed the mating vows, and the princess no one wanted had chosen him. But there was no time to celebrate. An explosion rocked the palace. The enemy had landed. Zira turned to her father. "We fight now, together." The king looked at the bonded pair, broken, strange, but unshakable. "Then take this," he said, handing Jace the blade of the first royal champion. "Fight not as outsider, but as one of us." As the gates burned and soldiers screamed, the human and the disabled alien princess stood side by side, ready to defend their love with fire and steel. The sky above Zelkora was on fire. Enemy warships from House Krell-Noth hovered like metal beasts, dropping burning pods onto the palace towers. Sirens screamed through the halls. The royal guards rushed to battle stations. But in the center of it all, two figures stood untouched by fear. Zira, the disabled princess once locked away in shame, and Jace, the human no one believed in, now bonded, now unstoppable. Jace held the blade of the first royal champion in both hands. It pulsed with ancient energy, recognizing him not by blood but by bond. It had never accepted anyone outside the royal line, until now. Beside him, Zira moved with grace on her reinforced brace. Though her legs shook, her spirit stood tall. She looked to him. "Are you ready?" He smiled. "I've been ready since you first called me strong." The enemy crashed through the main gate. Dozens of red-armored warriors charged in, expecting a frightened princess and a broken outsider, but they met fire instead. Jace swung the blade, its strike sending 2 attackers flying. Zira pressed a button on her wrist, releasing a defense shield that blocked incoming fire. Together they moved like 2 parts of a perfect machine, flawed alone but powerful together. On the upper balcony, King Theron watched with eyes wide. "They fight as one." His advisor nodded. "And the people are watching." All across the kingdom, live feeds showed the battle. Nobles, peasants, workers, everyone saw the disabled princess rise from weakness and fight back with the human who chose her. The people cheered, and for the first time in years, they believed in their royal line again. Inside the throne room, the enemy commander stepped forward. A tall alien with razor-black armor and eyes like knives. He pointed at Jace. "Give me the human. The princess is worthless without him." Zira stepped forward. "Then you've already lost. I was never worthless, and he's not yours to take." The commander growled and charged. Jace met him with steel. The clash echoed like thunder. Their swords lit the room with sparks. Jace bled but didn't fall. Zira joined the fight, blasting the enemy's shield with her brace-mounted cannon. Together they knocked the commander to the floor. Jace raised his blade, but Zira stopped him. "No. Let him crawl back to his masters. Let them see what love can do." The enemy fled. The invasion failed. The warship above pulled back, beaten not by armies, but by a single bond that was stronger than hatred. 3 days later, the royal court was full. Princess Zira stood before the nobles, no longer covered in silk or hidden behind curtains. She stood proudly, scars and all. Jace stood beside her, his hand in hers. King Theron raised his voice. "Let it be written in royal law. This human, Jace of Terra, is not just our savior. He is our equal, our blood, our bond." The nobles bowed. Zira turned to Jace and whispered, "They'll talk about us for centuries." He smiled. "Good. Let them talk." That night, under a sky filled with stars, Zira and Jace stood on the highest tower. "Still think I have good posture?" she teased. Evie grinned. "I think you're the most powerful woman I've ever met." She leaned closer. "Then kiss me like I'm not broken." And he did, because she never was. Final scene. Somewhere far away, a young girl with twisted legs watched the broadcast of Princess Zira and her human mate. Her eyes were wide with wonder. "Mom, she looks like me." Her mother smiled through tears. "Yes. And one day maybe you'll be a queen too. Because sometimes the galaxy needs more than warriors or kings. Sometimes it needs a broken princess, and the human who loved her enough to fight the whole universe."